Sup, Doc Cinema. It's time for a movie face-off, and we're back to the Rocky franchise. So I've so I put the original Rocky film up against Creed. I've put the first two Rocky films up against each other. Seems only natural that we now take the next two and put them up against each other. I'm talking about Rocky 3 and Rocky 4. And we're back to our usual 5-round movie face-off match. So, let's get right to it. Round 1, story. So the story of Rocky 3 is that after officially winning heavyweight champion, Rocky is now living the good life with, Coach Mickey. Yeah, Mickey. I feels wrong saying Mickey. Feel like I'm talking about Mickey Mouse. But again, in that film, a new challenger named Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T, ends up beating Rocky, and now Rocky is being trained by Apollo Creed to reclaim his title. And Rocky 4 sees the Russians, or as the movie puts it, the Russians invade U.S. sports with their fighter, Ivan Drago? Ivan Drago. I'm going to say Drago. Ivan Drago ends up killing Apollo Creed in the ring, and now Rocky is now training to beat up Ivan Drago in the boxing ring. So, which one has the better story? Well, I will admit that Rocky 3's story is probably better, is more well written. Rocky 4 is still somehow manages to have a more emotionally heavier film due to the fact that Apollo Creed, a popular character in the Rocky franchise, dies. That has a little bit of weight to it. And even though Rocky 4 is funny to watch, that gives an edge a little bit. So I'm giving this round to Rocky 4. Move on to round 2, the cast. The cast is very, very similar. Rocky Balboa, Apollo Creed, Paulie, Adrian. Those are the main ones. Then you got Coach Mickey in 3. And again, Mr. T as Clubber Lang in 3. And of course you have Rolf Lundgren. I forgot the actor's name, but it's the guy who plays Ivan Drago in Rocky 4. So really the casts for both of these films are fairly even out, considering the fact that it's pretty much more or less the same characters, with the only differences between the villains and the fact that Coach Mick is in the 3rd and not in the 4th. And considering the fact that Coach Mick is in the 3rd movie does give it the edge, and while Ivan Drago does have a couple of nice lines, he barely says anything beyond those couple of lines. While Mr. T, while maybe not having anything that's iconic in that film in terms of dialogue, it definitely has more energy to his character. So with having that in mind, I'm giving this round to Rocky 3. Now let's move on to round 3, humor. So Rocky 3 starts off on a somewhat serious note because we got an opening montage of Clubber Lang training and beating up other boxers as we see a montage of Rocky living the good life. But then we have Rocky fight against Hulk Hogan, which is hilarious. Now, there's probably nothing else in that movie that tops that hilarity, but it does have a good sense of humor as opposed to the first two films, which have very gritty and realistic depictions. Now, Rocky 4 is where the humor really comes in. I mean, you've got a robot, a Russian boxer that barely says anything, yet has some of the most hilariously awesome lines in the film. And you have Rocky climbing an entire mountain during his training montage, and him making a speech at the end of the movie about world peace that even gets the Russian Prime Minister to stand up and clap. I'm sorry. I saw Rocky 4 very recently, and oh my god. Yeah, I'm giving this one to Rocky 4. It may not have been intentionally funny, but it definitely has the best humor. Now let's move on to round 5 tone. So obviously, Rocky 4 doesn't have the most serious tone. I mean, it kind of tries to be, but the unintentional humor does get in the way. However, it does have that certain passion in the making of the film, which I do have to respect. However, in Rocky 3, while I'm pretty sure the same amount of passion is put into it, does noticeably have the more grounded tone. Again, not as grounded as the first two Rocky films, but there is a considerable amount of realism and down to earth quality that Rocky 4 is seriously lacking. And with Rocky Balboa actually having a little bit of a emotional breakdown during the training in preparation for the second Clubber Lang fight. So that's something that needs to be taken into consideration, and once it has been considered, Rocky 3 obviously wins this round. So, 2-2 tie. Move on to round 5. This is going to be the toughest round. The fight. Now, like I said, even though there are a couple of fights in each of these films, I'm talking about the final fight. The second fight between Rocky Balboa and Clubber Lang, and the end of the movie match of Rocky Balboa versus Ivan Drago. So, in Rocky 3, the fight is motivated because Rocky wants to reclaim his title to prove that he is the champion. And in Rocky 4, Rocky's motivation is that Ivan Drago killed his best friend Apollo Creed, and he wants to beat him in a fight. This is really hard to determine. I mean, the motivation in the third movie definitely is more relatable. Is definitely more relatable for a majority of people, and has a more grounded approach to how this fight's supposed to go, and the fight is probably more realistic. But in Rocky 4, while the motivation is definitely very specific, again, there is that little bit of emotional weight to it, but the fight itself is comedically far more entertaining. I mean, Ivan Drago uses his hands to basically fling Rocky across the boxing ring and pushes the ref aside as he's blowing the whistle. So this is actually really hard. You've got grounded, more realistic fight, but you've got the one that has more entertainment quality to it. Do you go with the one that's probably more loyal to the original two films, or do you go with the one that just goes balls to the walls and what it's been trying to do in its own film? Obviously, this comes to a bit of a personal opinion, but I'm going to have to give this round to Rocky 4. I mean, it's a very entertaining fight, guys. Please watch it. So, 3-2, Rocky 4 wins. Wow, this did not go the way I expected. I mean, Creed beat the first Rocky, which probably some could argue that's expected. Rocky 2 beat the original Rocky film. And now Rocky 4 beat Rocky 3. What is with the odd number Rocky films? Wait, I guess technically Creed counts as an odd number Rocky film since it's the 7th installment of the franchise, despite it being called Creed. Point is, The winners were not what I expected, but I'm still very pleased with it. So, comment down below with your thoughts, like, subscribe, share, Dr. Cinema. See you next time.